Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I titled it Beyond America. And we're going to be talking about some things that people don't typically talk about, right? The untold truths, things you got to face, whether it's mental challenges, emotional challenges, financial challenges. I'm going to talk about my experience, why I left, and some of the questions I see under my comments, right? So I've been making travel content for 1 year now. Last month makes 1 year, so I appreciate everybody's love, support, all that. We're gonna keep going, right? But one thing I noticed was a trend in certain questions I got in my comment section, so I was like, okay, let me make a video addressing a lot of these. Also, by the way, for anyone who's new here, I have traveled to 16 countries. Out of those 16, 4 of them I've actually lived in, right? Make sure to hit the like, comment, subscribe. We're gonna be talking about this type of subject matter on a regular basis. So first of all, I want to talk about why I decided originally that I wanted to leave America and how that came about. So ever since I was a kid, I kind of been fascinated with other cultures, right? I remember being a kid going to Canada from the Midwest. It's only a couple hours driving. And I'm like, yo, we got family over here. I like it. It's cool. I remember going to the cereal aisle. You see one side English, one side French. I'm like, bonjour, this is dope, right? So it just planted that seed in my mind early. But how did I go from transitioning to wanting to travel to actually relocating somewhere, right? So a couple years ago, I had a health scare, right? I had a medical condition, I believe it's pronounced gastritis. It's pretty much like a stomach inflammation that you have. So I'd wake up in the morning like, oh, I got pain in my stomach, all this type of stuff, right? I tried to sleep with my side, this side, back, stomach, whatever. I just had pain in my abdominal region. By the way, anyone who has pain, don't try to prolong it. Try to address it as soon as possible so you can see what's going on, right? You don't want to make conditions worse. But after various tests, I seen that I had this medical condition or whatever. I'm asking the doctor straight up, like, hey, doc, how did this happen? How did I get this? No one else in my family has it. It can't be genetic, right? And people in my family live to be like 80, 90 something years old. So I'm like, what's going on? And that's when they told me, like, hey, it's usually lifestyle related. You know, your physical activity, what are you eating, stress levels, whatever. I'm like, it didn't make sense because I'm not stressed out. Y'all see me, I'm laid back, I'm chilling. I don't stress over the small things. And then I thought I was eating healthy, and I'm a fairly physically active person, right? But I found out it came down to the food that we are consuming. And I noticed, I lived in Spain for 6 months. I didn't have this issue. I go to Turkey, I lived there for 4 months. I go to all these other places and it seems to disappear. My health issues disappear. And that's when I started doing research and found out that in America we have over 3,000 different chemicals and pesticides that we put in the food. So when you think you're eating healthy, even if you go to the veggie store, be like, yo, let me get an apple, let me get some kale. They got something they spray on it called a peel, right? And because they spray this on it, it adds all these little side effects, right? And that's not including the preservatives they put on it, the pesticides, all type of stuff, right? And whatever happens when it gets to the factory and then it gets shipped out and all that, we don't know what happens in between. There's certain things that the FDA says companies don't have to legally disclose because it's in such a small dose, but it's small enough to hurt you. So long story short, enough of me. I'm going to go on to how I arrived here, right? So once I went to Spain, and I'm like, yo, I don't got no health issues. So it made me realize that, yo, I got to get out of here because even when I'm eating healthy, I'm facing these problems. Which brings me to my point. Why are you trying to escape? So it's one thing to travel somewhere for a weekend, a couple of days, etc. But majority of my content is related to relocating / leaving your country of origin. So for all my people who are thinking about leaving permanently, or at least for an extended period of time, you have to ask yourself, why am I trying to leave, right? So I gave you my reason, health issues, but when I talk to mostly other people, they give me all type of other reasons. Political instability, inflation, they don't like what's going on with the presidency, they don't like the racial things that's going on, they don't like what's been taught in the schools. Those are like the top reasons, right? So I understand. I'm like, yo, you can go to other places, you know, get a different education, get a different variety of life, a spice of life, you know. It's definitely very possible. As far as places I would recommend to pay for people, I'd be looking at like Spain, maybe Thailand, Portugal, etc. But every place is going to come with a unique set of problems, situations, challenges, etc. So you heard me in the beginning of this video talk about, hey, I'm going to talk about some of the things you got to face, right? So as someone who's been to 16 countries, I can give you examples of the things that I personally face, right? And you could also look at my previous videos to see, hey, how do they treat him here? What's his conversation like, etc. Depending on your country of origin, what you look like, what your belief system is, etc., where you lay at financially, you will be treated differently, right? I'm just telling you the truth. Now, there are certain countries that try to practice a more diplomatic approach, try to treat everybody equally. Yeah, there are some countries like that, but there are some countries that have a vast difference, right? I remember going to Spain. I remember going to Turkey. One of the first questions they asked me, some of the people may ask me, are you African or are you American? I'd be like, what if I'm African American? I'm just joking about that part. But they did ask me, are you African or are you American? Because they treat the African people different than they treat the American people. I'm going to be honest with you, going to some of these countries, being American, it can have a lot of benefits for you. So I'd go somewhere like Spain, right? I'm a fairly darker skinned person. And they have a huge immigration situation in Spain. And where do most of the immigrants come from? Africa. More specifically, West and North Africa. So when they see me, they may think a certain thing, but then once they see the way I talk, the accent, etc., they be like, okay, I think he's American. And sometimes they ask me, because they still can't tell. Some of them still can't tell. Because remember, I'm speaking Spanish in a way that they may not be accustomed to. So you can say, ¿Cómo estás? But they're like, they don't talk like that. That's like textbook Spanish. It's asking, how are you? ¿Cómo estás? But they usually say something like, ¿Qué tal, tío? Buenas, ¿todo bien? ¿Qué pasa? Something like that, right? It's more of a slang, or it's more broken up where they use different phrases. But in our schooling system, they're going to teach you ¿Cómo estás? So you are going by the textbook definition, right? But once they figure out you're American, they are going to treat you a little bit different, but you may have that mental challenge. So I'm going to go into the next aspect. We can talk about religion briefly. I don't want to offend anybody, but depending on your religious beliefs, you may get treated differently in a lot of these places, and this can be a challenge you're facing. Now, if you have Instagram, you have seen a lot of things that's going on with the videos as far as in Europe, with a lot of immigrants being of a certain religious background, right? So they have a negative connotation towards that religious background in certain places of Europe because they feel, hey, these people are trying to take over. We have Christianity, they have this, right? So there's some bit of a clash, so you got to consider that. Another thing I want you to consider is when you go to these countries, no matter how much you, there's this dude, he's in my comment section. He's like, oh, just learn Korean. They're going to treat you a lot better. And I'm here to tell you, you can learn the language and you can receive some benefit from it, but you will forever be an outsider, especially in places like Korea and Japan. I'm not saying that as a sense of hate, so don't get it twisted. I love Japan. It's cool. I can't wait to go back. I met some amazing people that I still speak to this day in South Korea. So I don't want you to think that I'm hating these particular countries. I'm just being honest with you, being vulnerable with you. So when you go to South Korea, Japan, somewhere like that, I've heard this in China as well. I personally haven't been to China. I've been to Hong Kong, which is, some people get offended if you say that's Chinese. So when you go to these places, you're going to notice like you are an outsider. You can learn the language, you can learn the religion, you can learn the customs, the culture, you can dress like them, you can practice their demeanorism, you could practice some of their phrases, some of their mentality, because they have a mentality in Japan and South Korea where you smile in someone's face, you be polite in someone's face, but you conceal your true intentions or emotions at a sign of respect. If you don't believe me, you can Google it. They even got a word for it in Japanese. It's escaping my mind right now, but yes, that is a Japanese thing where you keep things polite on the surface level, but in the interior you feel a different way. So that can be a challenge because if you come from North America, Central America, South America, Canada, UK, you may be used to a culture that's more direct. Hey, this is how I feel. or hey, can we do this? And when someone says yes, you kind of hold them to a fire, like this person said yes, so if they change their mind, they're a liar. Where in certain other cultures you go to, they may say yes, and that means I'm only saying yes to make you happy. I'm only saying yes to avoid conflict. I remember being in Thailand, meeting with a few individuals, locals by the way, Thai people, and I would ask them to meet me here, or let's do this. They'd be like, yes. Or what do you think about this particular opinion? Yes. And I got disappointed, I got let down because they would say one thing to me but feel another way. And because that was my first time in Thailand, second time in Thailand, I had to ask questions. I asked local Thais, I did research online, I asked my Thai American buddy, shout out to Smitty, and I came to the conclusion, based off the conversations I had, based off the articles I read, based off the videos I watched, personal experience, etc., that yes, that appears to be a thing, right? Where you may say something to be polite, or just because you don't want to avoid conflict, that can be a cultural difference, that could be a challenge you face. So keep in mind, when you go to these places, you got to be willing to adapt, and you got to be able to see things from multiple lenses. I could come in with my American mentality and be like, nah, this is what we're doing, this is how you do it, if you don't do it this way, you're wrong. But I'm like, I got to relax. I got to be able to see things from how they see things, right? South Korea, for example, you can't point at someone like this. It's technically offensive. You can do it, but it's frowned upon. In America, it's not considered offensive though. You'd be like, hey you, can you come here? But over there, if you point at someone, it's considered offensive. It's considered a threat. It's considered disrespect. So when you point, they typically want you to go like this, right? These are certain little cultural nuances that you got to pay attention to. So another thing I want to look at is the cost of living. There's something called foreign transaction fees. If you're new to the travel game, you need to call up your financial institution, whether it's your debit card company or your credit card company, and ask them, hey, are you going to charge me a fee to go make these purchases internationally? So I'll explain it to you as someone who's traveled a lot and someone who has talked to many different financial institutions and has had many cards in my short lifetime. How foreign transaction fees are calculated is it's typically about 3% of your transaction. So it may not sound like much, but if you spend $1,000 here, $1,000 here, it starts to add up, because 3% is $30. So if you're spending $2,000 a month and you're there for 6 months, it's a couple hundred, right? Easily over $500 if you do some quick math. So you're going to call your financial institution, do you charge me foreign transaction fees? Hopefully they don't. There's a lot of places that do not. If you have the Coinbase card, they don't charge you. If you have Charles Schwab, they don't charge you as far as their debit card. If you have the Chase Premier credit cards, they don't charge you for foreign transaction fee. Typically the ones that have the annual fee, the cards you got to pay for, you know, a lot of the Chase ones, a lot of the Wells Fargo, what's it called, Premier Autograph or something, the one that's $99 a year. Those ones don't have foreign transaction fees. Like maybe you're making a trade-off with the annual fee, but that's the thing you want to keep in mind, right? Conversion fees, they go off the local bank, so that's how the exchange rate works within. I always say to bring a couple of extra dollars with you because you just never know what's going to happen. You may go to the airport, get stranded. You see these government shutdowns happening, right? So flights get delayed, things happen. Uber drivers get lost, whether it's on purpose or not on purpose. It's happened to me in Turkey. They charged me a couple extra dollars. Oh, I got lost. Oh, I'm sure you've done this route 500 times and you got lost, right? So always have a few extra dollars on you on cash and credit and debit. One thing you can do so you don't get ripped off at the airport, like let's say you got a trip coming up or you're gonna go somewhere for an extended period of time, you know it's coming. You can reach out to your financial institution, like let's say you bank with, I don't know, Fifth Third Bank or whatever the most common bank is, Bank of America. And you'd be like, hey, I want to order some money. Can you sell me some Brazilian reais? Can you sell me some euros, right? So you can actually buy international banknotes from your bank prior to your travel. So by the time you go there, you already have a couple dollars in your pocket. And typically your bank will give you a better exchange rate than the airport. The airport is usually the #1 place if you want to get ripped off, right? But a lot of people panic. They're like, yo, I just need something. Let me go to the airport. Let me just get a quick $50, $100. You may ask for 100, but you paid for $130 just to get that 100. So save yourself some money, because that $30 can definitely make a difference. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love all y'all, and I hope y'all have a nice day. Peace.